Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the fashion industry, but we're doing it through the eyes of someone who's lived it. Supermodel Cameron Russell. In a really honest talk, she gets into the complicated and, yeah, often uncomfortable truth behind all those glossy images we see every day. So, this is how she kicks things off. It's not some glamorous story, it's a line that's meant to make you kind of lean in and go, wait, what? Right from the jump, she's signaling that this isn't going to be your typical supermodel story. And then she does something kinda wild. Right there on stage, she completely changes her outfit. And in just a handful of seconds, she shows us what this whole thing is really about: the incredible, insane power of image, and just how easily it can be twisted. Which gets us to our first big idea. Image is this double-edged sword, right? It has this huge impact on how we see the world and each other. But at the same time, it's often based on something incredibly shallow. And that's the whole point of her demonstration. In literally 6 seconds, she completely flipped how the audience saw her. It's a heck of a reminder of how quickly we make judgments based on what we see, and how flimsy those judgments can be. So, naturally, this brings up a question she must get constantly. How do you actually become a model? And her answer, well, it's not what you'd expect. It has less to do with talent and hard work, and more to do with something else entirely. The canned answer is always something like, oh, I was scouted. But Russell, she gets real. She says becoming a model isn't about being discovered, it's about winning a genetic lottery and being handed a legacy.
Okay, so what is this legacy she's talking about? Well, think about it. It's a beauty standard that's been built up for centuries, one that's always prized a very, very narrow look. As she says, it's a legacy that was built for her, one she's been able to cash out on.
And this isn't just a vague idea. You can see the impact of that legacy in the actual numbers. I mean, look at this. A 2007 study of New York runways found that fewer than 4% of the models were non-white. That's a pretty powerful and stark statistic. So, we have this carefully selected image of beauty. And that brings us to the next logical question. We've talked about who gets chosen, but what about the images themselves? Are those photos we see even real? Russell is super clear about this. She's like, look, those pictures you see in magazines, they're not pictures of me. They are constructions. They're a fantasy, not a snapshot of a real person in a real moment. And when she says construction, she's not kidding. It takes a village to create a single photo. We're talking hairstylists, makeup artists, photographers, stylists, assistants, the whole shebang, from pre-production all the way to post-production. And this is where things get really interesting, because it's not just about fashion. This same legacy that picks out models also creates some very real and very unearned privileges and disadvantages out in the real world. Russell tells these personal stories about the little perks she gets just because of how she looks. A free dress here, getting out of a ticket there. She calls it free stuff. But then she immediately flips it and talks about the serious, systemic price that other people pay because of their appearance. And yeah, this is where it gets incredibly serious, way beyond the fashion world. She brings up this shocking statistic from New York. Out of 140,000 teens stopped by police in just 1 year, a staggering 86% were Black and Latino. So for them, how they look isn't a privilege, it's a liability. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, and it's probably the most surprising part of this whole story. What about the models themselves? The ones who supposedly won the genetic lottery? What's the emotional cost for them? First off, let's just be real about the effect these images have on everyone else. Look at these numbers. By the time they're 17, 78% of girls in the US say they're unhappy with their bodies. It's pretty clear these ideals are doing some real damage. And this is the incredible paradox of it all. Russell just comes right out and says it. I am insecure. And why? Because her entire life, her entire job is to think about what she looks like every single day. And this is really the mic drop moment. She says, if you ever think that having the thinnest thighs and shiniest hair is the key to happiness, just go hang out with a group of models. They are, as she puts it, some of the most physically insecure people on the entire planet. So, where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway? Look, she's not saying we should all boycott fashion. What she's really asking is for us to just be more honest with ourselves, to really acknowledge how powerful image is in our lives, in both good ways and bad. And that really brings the question back to all of us, doesn't it? We've seen how this plays out on a huge stage, but take a second to think about your own life. How has image, the way you look, or the way others look, shaped what you see as your successes and your failures? It's a really powerful question to sit with.